for you all. What to expect on your instrument pilot and commercial pilot check ride plus mock check ride. A lot of great things we're going to chat about. Maybe you are already an instrument rated pilot, an aspiring commercial pilot, or maybe you just want to check it out and see, geez, could I do commercial one day if I wanted to? Maybe you're working in commercial. Maybe you're a private pilot, or geez, you could even be a student pilot. Whatever applies to you, I promise you, you're going to learn something this evening. We're going to go over some great things. I've got some very difficult actual FAA check ride questions that I'm going to ask you this evening. Now, a little bit about how this works. I'm going to do my presentation. Now, you guys feel free to comment, have a question, chat at any time. Now, I can't hear you, I can't see you, but how you and I communicate is through your handy dandy GoToWebinar control panel underneath the questions tab. If you're on a tablet or an iPad, something like that, tap that question mark and your keyboard will pop up. You can talk to us that way. I can see that. My beautiful wife, Ashley, can see that. World famous Uncle Larry, Matt, Scott, the entire MzeroA.com team is in there to help field and answer your questions. Now, when we get to the mock check ride portion and I ask a question, you're going to actually type what you believe is the correct answer into that same box. So I know it says questions. You're going to type in your answers there. Of course, I'll read a few, but guys, keep in mind, we've got, by the time in about 5 minutes here, we're going to have over 1,000 people on this webinar. I'm not going to be able to read everyone's response, say everybody's name. So please don't feel left out. I'm going to read a few, but for time's sake and kind of move forward with that. But before we do that, let's dive into a little bit about myself and this great team you're going to be interacting with here on this webinar and at MzeroA.com. This, of course, is our booth at Oshkosh. Myself, world famous Uncle Larry, Ashley, Scott, and Matt. Those are the ones that are on the webinar tonight chatting with you. Named AOPA's Outstanding Flight Instructor 2 years in a row now, 2014, 2015. Couldn't have done it without you guys. Couldn't have done it without this awesome team here. Well, this is really how MzeroA.com started. Myself, my beautiful wife, Ashley, our dogs, Pedo and Magneto, and the goats, Prop, Rudder, and Strut. So quite the aviation themed household the Shepard household is. We still get people that come up to us at Oshkosh and say, hey, how's Pedo? How's Magneto? How's Prop? Well, everybody is doing wonderful. So thank you for asking. If you're not familiar with MzeroA.com, I imagine a lot of you are, so I'll breeze through this very quickly. We just launched our feature-length documentary, Flying Again. 9.7 stars on IMDb right now. Very proud of that. Be sure to leave your reviews there if you don't mind. We're up to 10 books now. Some here, Secret to Perfect Landings, In-Flight Emergencies, world famous Uncle Larry's book, The Pilot's Primer for Medications, Pass Your Instrument Pilot Check Ride, Pass Your Private Pilot Check Ride, Private Pilot Blueprint. 5,000 copies of this were given away last year alone. This is the Prospective Pilot's book. If you take a discovery flight or even think you want to learn to fly, you need to have a private pilot blueprint in your hands. It's everything I wish someone would have told me before I started my flight training. I know that doesn't apply to a lot of you, but a lot of you serve as mentors in this aviation community, and it's a great resource to send coworkers to or any prospective pilots that you might take flying. They've gotten bitten by the aviation bug, a great place to send them. Of course, you guys are all familiar with our videos you see on YouTube, our webinars that we do. These are some screenshots from our #1 rated online ground school, complete private instrument, and soon to be by middle of February, end of this month so far, commercial pilot online ground school as well. One membership gets you access to all courses. Everything is shot in 4K, 4 times the quality of HD, to kind of put it in plain English there for you. Great quality videos, taking apart an altimeter, seeing a steep turn from the wing, a lot of the great in-cockpit stuff you see, a lot of great studio shoots, everything else. So I know you guys will enjoy that. I see a lot of familiar names on here from our online ground school. So thankful to have you guys on here. So let's dive into it here. Enough about us. Let's talk about you, and let's talk about your instrument pilot check ride. Now, I'm not going to go into like the early check ride stuff, because chances are you've already done at least one check ride, private pilot check ride, most likely. You've already knocked that out. So if you feel like this is too vague, because I am making some assumptions that you're already a private pilot just by about what I'm about to say, go back and watch 2 days ago's webinar on what to expect on your private pilot check ride plus the private pilot mock check ride. It's my most recent video up on YouTube right now. It's the recording of that, so you can check that out there. But let's chat about this for a second, because where are the similarities and where are the differences from a private pilot check ride to an instrument pilot check ride? There's a lot of similarities. The same kind of structure is going to be followed. Yet what's going to be asked of you is completely different. The oral exam for an instrument pilot check ride is typically longer. In fact, you might hear people say that your instrument pilot check ride will probably, unless you go on to be a CFI, will probably be one of the most difficult check rides you take. Assuming if we're comparing private and instrument pilot is a much more difficult check ride. It is just mentally draining and demanding on the level of knowledge that you have to have, on the kinds of things you're going to be asked at, the kinds of scenarios you're going to be placed in. It is demanding from that standpoint. So what can you really expect? Well, you're going to plan a cross country just like you did for private pilot. However, for instrument pilot, we're using all low en route charts. So am I a master of my low en route charting, of airspace on low en route charts, of chart symbols on low en route charts? They're going to be more lenient and allow you to use an iPad and technology more than they did on your private pilot check ride. Tuesday night, I told my private pilot guys, I said, listen, you can use an iPad, but they can just as easily take it away from you. The instrument pilot check ride has really embraced the electronic flight bag and the use of an iPad on that check ride. That's not to say they're not going to take it away from you. You still need to have paper charts, paper backups. Matt and Scott, any of these guys, and Larry can tell you that despite flying with an iPad, I still have charts. In fact, Matt and I were just shooting instrument approaches a few weeks ago, and he had iPad with charts, and I printed out paper charts. So we each had a little bit of both, and I was using my paper charts, and he was using his iPad, and everything was perfect. We could have both been using iPads. We could have both been using paper, but I like the redundancy of having two different things. But you'll be able to embrace technology on that instrument pilot check ride a little bit more. Now, on that instrument pilot check ride, you are still pilot in command. That includes your from passenger brief to shutdown, start to shutdown, all the radio calls, all the approach briefs. It is going to be like single pilot IFR on that check ride. So if you find yourself falling behind that airplane, you might want to consider getting up and getting that single pilot IFR practice in with a safety pilot, whatever it may be, with an instructor. Because the radio work is yours. The approach briefing and the charting work is all yours. And by the way, you got to continue to fly the airplane. And I can see the questions now asking, well, can I use an autopilot? Sure, you can use an autopilot, maybe for one approach until they pull that circuit breaker. They're going to expect you to know how to hand fly the airplane. Now, I'll end with this and I'll talk commercial pilot, then we'll just dive into the mock check ride because that's the fun part. And the mock check ride is going to consume the majority of this webinar's time. You need to think worst case scenario. You need to think shooting a ILS approach, or geez, even more difficult, let's say shooting a VOR approach with a vacuum system failure. So a no gyro VOR approach, or listen, a no gyro ILS approach is difficult too because you add pitch to it, but sometimes the glide slope can help you a little bit with that. But think of no gyro single pilot approaches. That's hard stuff to do, but that will happen on your instrument pilot check ride. My instrument pilot check ride started like this. We taxied out to the runway and he said, here, put these foggles on. I said, excuse me? He goes, yeah, I want you to do it what's called a 0-0 takeoff. And I said, well, I've never done a 0-0 takeoff. What's it? It's kind of like on your private pilot check ride. The same thing happened to me. He said, I want you to do a turning stall. I'm like, I've never done a turning stall. Same thing happened on my instrument pilot check ride. You can see I had some deficiencies in my training. I share them with you so you guys don't have those same deficiencies. He put the foggles on me and said, I want you to do a 0-0 takeoff. And I told him I've never done one before. He goes, well, I would hope you would never do one in real life, but you could legally do one. So I'd like to see you do one. And thankfully, DPEs, your designated pilot examiners, aren't supposed to help a whole lot, but this guy was fairly helpful when he said, go out on the runway, use your heading bug to maintain center line on that runway. I want to see a 0-0 takeoff. My check ride, literally, before the wheels left the ground, was under the foggles. And we shot approaches after that and everything else. Now, one last thing, then I'll talk commercial pilot for a second, then we'll bring this all back together. We did our private pilot maneuvers. And if you look in the PTS and soon to be ACS, Airman Certification Standards, you will see steep turn, slow flight stalls under the hood. So let me ask you, when is the last time instrument pilots out there, or aspiring instrument pilots with check ride coming up, when is the last time you did steep turn, slow flight stalls under the hood? It's probably been a long time. That was like instrument lesson 1 or 2. It's certainly been a while. And they're going to ask you to do it. I promise you, you're going to do it. Yet we spend so much time becoming an instrument pilot on just approaches that we forget about the basics. And oftentimes, your check ride will start out, show me steep turn, show me slow flight, show me stalls. Now let's go do approaches. Be ready for the basics as well. Don't neglect them. Now let's talk about the commercial pilot check ride. The interesting thing, now, if you've listened to the Commercial Pilot podcast, you've heard me say this a lot. Please stop calling the commercial pilot check ride a glorified private pilot check ride, because it's not a glorified private pilot check ride. The tolerances are more strict. The scope of work and the items you can be asked is much larger. You see, on your commercial pilot check ride, I can be asked anything from my private pilot days, and I can and will be asked anything from my instrument pilot days. This is why we're combining this webinar, calling it the Instrument and Commercial Pilot Mock Check Ride. Because yes, commercial pilot has some very specific for-hire type questions, but you can also be asked instrument pilot questions. You can also be asked private pilot questions, and that's why I combine them, because you can be quizzed retroactively on anything from the past as well. Your commercial pilot check ride can and will consist of some instrument approaches. Be ready for that. You can say, oh, it's VFR only, don't worry about it. They're going to make you do hood work. And they could ask you to do flight maneuvers under the hood. They could ask you to shoot an approach under the hood. You want to do, if you're doing commercial multi, I guarantee you're going to shoot approaches. Commercial multi, you're not only going to shoot approaches, you're going to shoot my vacuum system has failed and so has my right engine. You're going to shoot single engine vacuum system failure ILS approaches. I promise you'll do that on your commercial pilot multi-engine check ride, or your multi add-on to a commercial if you're going to do it there. So this is so relevant to all of that. You need to be prepared. And this is what I commonly see happen. We become a private pilot. All we do is learn how to look outside. That's great. Then you become an instrument-rated pilot, where we now say, okay, forget outside. Let's all spend our time looking inside, learn how to scan our instruments. And then we go and do our commercial and we say, wait a second, stop looking inside so much. Remember, chandelles are a VFR maneuver. I need to see you look outside. We go inside, outside, inside, outside. And then on the commercial pilot, I want you looking outside, but now we got to do this approach. Commercial multi, I want you looking outside, but now I failed this engine while you're shooting this approach. So look back inside, please. And it's making that transition and flipping that switch from inside to outside sometimes. It sounds silly, but it's accurate. So what can we expect on our commercial pilot check ride? Please stop calling it a glorified private pilot. It is a much more challenging check ride than that. In fact, I almost failed my commercial pilot check ride. Geez, you've heard some of my check ride stories before. I got by this. Thankfully, I've never had a failure on my books. I've come darn close on all of them, and I've shared those stories with you. But my commercial pilot check ride, literally, the gentleman looked at me and said, Jason, I don't think we're going to be able to finish this check ride. I said, listen, sir, you don't understand. Let me just get in that. It was during the oral exam. I said, let me just get in that airplane, please, and I will prove to you that I can do this. And he said, you cannot screw up once. You cannot be a foot off your altitude to pass. It's going to be very difficult. And thankfully, I flew my best that day and passed my commercial pilot check ride, but it wasn't going so well because now it was tough for me because I did my private instrument part 61, then tried to transition to a 141 school for commercial, and there were some serious gaps in my ground knowledge there. We were talking, one of the questions he asked me was at 60 knots at approach and the depth of the water on the runway is X, at what airspeed would you hydroplane at? And there is a formula to calculate that using square root. I didn't know that, but that's the depth of knowledge this gentleman wanted to get into, and I didn't have it. So anybody who calls it a glorified private pilot is pulling your leg, because unless they can tell you at the speed you would have reverted rubber hydroplaning and the depth of the water, they're just pulling your leg, trust me. So instrument and commercial check rides have a similar scope of work. Obviously, commercial does lean more towards VFR, but remember, they can pull out anything from that instrument ride on you, so be ready for that. I've rambled enough. I'd like to dive into the question segment of this. I am going to ask you actual FAA instrument and commercial pilot check ride questions. You work to provide your best answers. Now, you provide those best answers, again, in your handy-dandy GoToWebinar control panel underneath the questions tab. You will type those in. I'll read a few. Again, I cannot take everybody's, but I will do my best to read a few and say some names and kind of acknowledge you in that way. But keep in mind, there's a lot of people on this webinar. It's not like our typical online ground school member webinars where we have a much smaller, more intimate group and we can kind of provide that mentorship and everything else. So what to expect on your instrument commercial pilot check ride, starting out with question number 1, an instrument pilot check ride question. At what distance do you have guaranteed obstacle clearance while circling? At what distance do you have guaranteed obstacle clearance while circling? I'm going to mute my mic and let you guys type your answers in. I'm looking for it in miles, by the way. I'll mute my mic while you guys type some of those answers in. Good question, Kelly. Good answer. I'm sorry, Kelly F. Paul D. Greg E. Rick C. No need to put a question mark after that, my friend. You are correct. Dominic C. I'm glad we're going over this. Again, I always say, Nick K. I always say, wouldn't you rather not know a question or get a question wrong here with me tonight than on your check ride when you've paid $400, $500, $600 in some cases for that check ride? And you only get so many get out of jail free cards where you can look it up, like I was talking about 2 nights ago in the private pilot webinar. So I'd rather you learn these things here with me tonight, because the examiner's just going to ask questions. They're not allowed to teach. They're not allowed to lead you into questions. You'll learn, trust me, but they're not supposed to teach. So it's a great opportunity, these mock check rides, to ask a question. You try to provide your best answer. We work to formulate those answers, and I give you that best possible answer like this right here. The answer for those of you is 1.3 miles. 1.3 miles. Now, that's not good enough, though, because there would be a follow-up question to this. So I'm going to call this next one question 1.5. Where is that 1.3 miles measured from? This is like, if you know this, you're probably already an instrument pilot, or you're pretty darn close, or you're an online ground school member of ours, if I had to guess. Question number 1.5. Where is that 1.3 miles actually measured from here? Let's see. I'm trying to. Yep. Blaine N. Tim M. Paul D. You were spot on, my friend. Brandon M. I'm just reading a few of these. Kelly F. Yep. Ben S. Beautiful stuff. I'm going to grab a sip of tea. I'll reveal that answer real quick. So I'm guaranteed obstacle clearance while circling off an approach as long as I stay within 1.3 miles from the approach end of the runway. You can't really say the end of the runway because, well, the end of what runway? Well, the end of my approach runway or runway threshold to get more specific. Now, the argument is, well, where is my GPS measuring to? Well, if your GPS is awfully smart, it is measuring to the approach end of the runway. But some GPS just use a waypoint that is the middle of the airport. So you have to look and see if you go procedures, and enter the actual procedure and it shows the distance from the missed approach point, you got to be careful. It could show you the distance from the center of the runway or the center of the airport, which isn't correct. It's from the approach end of the runway. Guaranteed this will come up on your instrument pilot check ride. I promise you. This will be on your instrument pilot check ride. Watch for that one. Question number 2. What is required for an overwater flight? I want to know for hire if you're working on being a commercial pilot. I want to know not for hire if you don't aspire to be a commercial pilot one day. Really, what applies for you? If you're going to do it for hire one day, what is required for an overwater flight? Let's just say part 91. Don't have to get fancy into 135, 121 stuff. And then not for hire is what I want to know. I will mute my mic and let you guys type some answers in. Seth V, good answer. Barry S. Tom F, yeah. Nathaniel W, yeah. Harold R, yeah. Thomas W, yeah. Hey, Mo, yeah, that could work. I imagine, Mo, they'd want you to be a little bit more specific, but you're on the right track. David V, David VA, I should say, I see, that's funny. Greg E, yeah. Hey, Doug M, you're correct. Doug M, ground school member. Ed H, hey. Yeah, but again, maybe a little bit more specific. Let's talk about this for a second. And I'm going to quote the actual regulations for you, and then I'm going to break them down like we like to do into plain conversational English. So what is required for an overwater flight? For hire, and certainly not for hire. Let's chat about this for a second here. For hire. This is straight from 91-205. 91-205 is where we get A tomato flames from, our required VFR day night instruments. If you continue a little bit further in 91-205 into some of the subparts, we learn that if the aircraft is operated for hire, over water, and beyond power-off gliding distance from the shore, approved flotation gear readily available to each occupant. And this is for 121 operators only, at least one pyrotechnic signaling device. Part 121, of course, is scheduled air carriers. JetBlue is a 121 to help you with that. Scheduled air carriers. So the verbiage here is interesting. For hire, I've got to have a approved flotation gear, it says, readily available for each occupant, and it's power off gliding distance. So for hire is flotation gear, each occupant, power off gliding distance. Not for hire Listen to this. No person may take off an airplane for a flight over water more than 50 nautical miles from the nearest shore. Notice you won't see power off gliding distance listed here, is my point. Unless that airplane is equipped with a life preserver and or approved flotation means for each occupant of that airplane. That's more than 50 nautical miles from the nearest shore. Part B, though, says this. It tightens it up a little bit in some cases. No person may take off an airplane for flight over water more than 30 minutes flying time or 100 nautical miles from the nearest shore, whichever is less. See how they worded that there? Unless it has on board the following: life preserver equipped, enough life rafts, at least one pyrotechnic signaling device, one self-buoyant water resistance portable emergency radio, a lifeline stored in accordance with 21.140 or 1411 Gulf of this chapter. Let me go back a slide. For hire, power off glide distance, each occupant. Not for hire, 50 nautical miles must have it for each occupant, or 30 minutes or 100 nautical miles, whichever is less in that case. So think about this. We think of overwater operations as going to the Bahamas, but or Catalina Island. Truthfully, it could be over the Great Lakes. And Catalina Island isn't 50 nautical miles offshore, but if you do it in a Piper Cub and it's going to take you more than 30 minutes because your airplane's so slow, you fall under that category. Do you see what I mean there? They have this subpart B to kind of cover themselves a little bit for slow flying aircraft where 50 nautical miles would really take a long time. Do you follow me there? Good information to know, commercial pilot check ride type stuff. Let's keep moving forward here for time's sake. Question number 3. What is an MEL? What does it stand for? Would be good to know. If you know what it is, that would be great as well. What is an MEL? I'm going to mute my mic while you guys type some answers in. Timothy S., good. Juan E., beautiful. Robert M., beautiful. Jacob B., Paul S., Alan H., Brett L., good stuff. Nathaniel W., great stuff. MEL, and what is it, or what do I do with it, or what can it do for me? When would I use it? These types of questions are the things that are going to come up on a commercial. This is like guaranteed you're going to talk about an MEL on a commercial pilot check ride. It's going to be one of the first things your check ride examiner is going to bring up is an MEL, because you may not deal with an MEL in your 172, but you're going to deal with an MEL in the larger aircraft you're going to fly. And you should create for yourself an MEL kind of flow chart. Let me first explain what it is, and I'll chat with you about that flow chart. MEL, of course, stands for Minimum Equipment List. Do not let the name fool you, because here's Jason's plain English explanation of what it means. The minimum equipment list is what's allowed to be broken and still fly the airplane. It's like an oxymoron. People think, oh, minimum equipment list, that must be the minimum equipment I have to have. No, it's the exact opposite. In fact, it is a list that literally says, yes, this is allowed to be broken, and we're still able to fly the airplane. I've got a great flow chart in my private and instrument pilot check ride books in the ground school, of course. But how this works essentially is you're flying on, let's say a 414. I don't know what you're flying commercially, let's say. And you hop on the airplane, and I'll give a ridiculous example because it's silly, but you notice the coffee maker is broken. Well, technically, if anything that's factory installed on that aircraft and it came from Cessna with a coffee maker is broken, you need to consult your POH and you consult 91205. You consult a lot of things, but ultimately it comes down to that MEL of what's allowed to be broken and still fly. So you'd go to your MEL and you'd look and you'd say, oh, coffee maker, great. Coffee maker, it's allowed to be broken and I am still airworthy. It's going to say, okay, great, placard it as in op and continue on. I know it's a ridiculous example, but truth be told, on larger aircraft, I kid you not, a coffee maker is listed on a minimum equipment list. Probably not on a 414, but on JetBlue and everything else, there are sillier things on an Airbus A380 and these sort of things because they got to keep flying. They know their minimum equipment lists. It is what's allowed to be broken and still fly. So that is assuming it's, and there's a flow chart to this. So you'd start, is it in, 91205? Is it in my owner's manual POH? Then I go and consult my minimum equipment list. There is a procedure to certainly follow there with that. So cool. Minimum equipment list. What's allowed to be broken and still fly the airplane? Let's continue now to question number 4. Question number 4. In Aft CG, will it give me a faster or slower cruise speed and more stable or less stable? So I want you to tell me faster or slower, more stable, less stable. If I had an Aft CG, I'm going to mute my mic while you guys type some of those answers in. An Aft CG, faster, slower cruise, more stable, less stable. Let's see it here. My buddy Bill from Jacksonville. Ooh, that Bill, that's gonna be your new nickname. That just came out. That is a great nickname for you, Bill from Jacksonville. You are spot on, but I would only expect the best from you, my friend. Thank you, Alan H. You're correct. Thank you, Brandon M. You are correct. Thank you, Benson H. My friend, you are correct. Zach K. Hey, buddy, you are correct. Bo G. You are correct. Alexander D. You are correct. And Aft CG, does it make me faster or slower and more stable or less stable while flying? And I'm going to explain why. An Aft CG allows for a faster cruise speed, but it is far less stable. Aft CG, faster cruise, but less stable aircraft. I would take a forward CG all day. It's a little bit slower, but it's far more stable. Let me explain why really quick. This is one of my favorite things to explain. It's all about center of gravity and stability. Take a look at our model airplane here. Beautiful, isn't it? This is actually how 59 Quebec is going to be painted here relatively soon. By the way, any paint shops on the line that want to take on this daunting task, please email me because I've had 3 paint shops tell me they can't do it because it's too crazy. Center of gravity and stability. You ready for this? If I have a CG that's, let's say, kind of right behind the pilot seat where I just dropped this star a little bit here. Let me ask you a question. What is center of gravity? Center of gravity is where everything balances. If this were a teeter-totter, or to be more scientific, a fulcrum, this is where my aircraft would perfectly balance. Now, let me ask you another question. In a spin, what do I use to recover? Okay, let's remember that. Power back, ailerons neutral, rudder opposite, elevator down. I'm using my rudder and my elevator. I'm using my tail to aid in that recovery, right? So I need more control for my rudder and my tail. Well, you've heard of something called an arm. When we reference an arm in reference to our center of gravity, it's talking about to our tail. And the longer the arm, the greater the stability. Let me give you an example. There is a reason the door handle on your door in whatever room you're in right now is far away from the hinges, because it gives you greater leverage. Now imagine if you took that door handle and you put it dead smack in the middle of your door. How much more difficult would it be to open and close that door? Because the door handle now has a shorter arm back to the hinges. It's all about leverage. So if I give myself an aft CG, like back by the baggage compartment, I now have a shorter arm back to my tail, which gives me less rudder authority and less elevator authority. Do you understand what I mean? I have just made my rudder and my elevator significantly less effective. It's like putting the door handle in the middle of your door and trying to open it. It's like taking a small wrench that you can't get a lot of leverage on, a lot of torque on. It's all about leverage. A forward CG gives me a longer arm back to my tail and makes me makes me more stable. Do you follow me on that? Does that make sense to everybody? Center of gravity and stability. Holy smokes, this will, without a shadow of a doubt, be on your commercial. Geez, this could be on your private pilot check, right? I talk about this in great detail in the private pilot ground school, but this definitely, this would be like barely scratching the surface for a commercial pilot check ride. I just shot a killer video for the commercial pilot ground school on, weight shift and moment shift. What happens if the guy in the back seat and the guy in the front seat swap seats? What does that do? And you fly for an hour and burn, 100 pounds worth of fuel. How does the CG shift? How does maneuvering speed change? We talk about, you're going to get in some really detailed stuff for a commercial pilot. You've got to be decent at math to be a commercial pilot, or at least really know how to work the formulas for sure. Of course, I'm not decent at math, but I figured out the formulas. I at least got good at aviation math and mental math for sure. Center of gravity and stability, weight and balance. Gosh, such a big part. If this is an area you struggle with, you need to get good at weight and balance for commercial pilot. Fifth and final actual FAA check ride question, then we'll wrap this thing up and take your questions. Decode this NOTAM. You're just going through, you're checking out NOTAMs today online, on ForeFlight, whatever it may be, and you see this NOTAM. Can you decode this NOTAM for me? This part, I'd imagine you could get. I'm more interested in this part down here at the end, too. This looks like a telephone number or something. Can you decode this NOTAM for me? I'm going to mute my mic while you guys type these answers in. Can we decode this NOTAM? It's easy when flight service just kind of tells me what the NOTAM means, but what happens when you get it yourself and you have to read it? Let's see if we have any takers on this. Is a tough one. There's like a billion people in this webinar, so I got a lot of scrolling to go through here. Okay. Yeah, some of you told me, I'll let the cat out of the bag here. Some of you just said, okay, yeah, it's closed, date and time. But can you read that date and time there for me? Like Seth V, like David L, like Brandon M did. This is tough stuff. And again, guys, I always say it. Aren't you so thankful you're learning these things here with me today than when it's costing you $600? It's just, it's that simple. And again, these are things we do with our online ground school members every month. We do a webinar every Monday night, but at the end of every month, last Monday of every month, is a mock check ride just like this that we ask these sort of questions with to really kind of see where you are at with things. Sebastian, good stuff. Sebastian M, that was. Let me grab another sip here, and I will reveal this answer to you, then we'll take your questions. All righty, you ready for this? So obviously, this is the easy part. MCO Orlando, runway 17 left, 35 right, closed from when? 15 is the year. The month is the next two numbers. The day, the next two numbers. And it'll always be two numbers. It'd be 08 if it was just the 8th. And then the time. So it's closed from April 28th, 2015, from 0300 to the 15th, or I'm sorry, from April 28th, 2015 to 1400. NOTAMs for the MCO airport. Know how to read. It's one thing to just say, oh, the runway's closed. There's plenty of runways in MCO. That shouldn't be a problem. And not know this sort of stuff. And it's so easy when the flight service station guy just tells you that. But it's another thing when you can read it there for yourself. So let me ask you guys a question here. How did you guys do? Listen, if you got 5 for 5, I would argue that you're probably already a commercial pilot, probably already an instrument rated pilot. If not, you are very darn close to taking that check ride, and you're going to pass it with flying colors. Because the questions I asked this evening were not easy. This was a tough mock check ride. My online ground school members can attest to this. That was a fairly challenging mock check ride, no doubt. And listen, if you guys liked or loved, I hope you loved it, loved this mock check ride, I want this to be something you can participate in every Monday night. Every Monday night, we do a weekly workshop webinar. Last Monday of every month, we do a mock check ride with our online ground school members. And I'm sure you've heard this already before, but I'll say it again. I'm only doing this once in 2016. I will not make this offer again in the year 2016. I promise you. I'm only doing this once. If you sign up and become an online ground school gold, silver, bronze, and even PIC member, I will give you all of our books. Secret of Perfect Landings, Fireman in Plain English, In-Flight Emergencies, Larry's book, Pass Your Instrument Pilot Checkride, Pass Your Private Pilot Checkride, ebooks and audiobooks as well. Our version of the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, our version of the Airplane Flying Handbook with my video, commentary, and summary and everything else included in there. Audiobooks included to everything that has an audiobook. If you added everything to your cart tonight, it'd be over $300 worth of books that I'm going to give you for free just by becoming a member. Go to groundschoolacademy.com to get signed up for our gold package, silver, bronze, or PIC. The PIC, Pilots Inner Circle membership, like I joke and say Bill from Jacksonville. Bill from Jacksonville is a PIC member. He is a very current and proficient pilot who wants to live out that good pilot is always learning mantra by participating in the webinars, by our new PIC monthly trainings that, Bill, I know you're going to love when you see this one that's coming out, inspired by Dustin, who I know is a PIC and gold member. Who inspired the story, really. But you become an online ground school gold member, you get access to our private and instrument and soon to be, by the end of this month, commercial pilot ground school 61-141 approved, unlimited FAA written practice tests. I endorse you for your FAA written test. So if you don't have a current CFI right now, no big deal. I can endorse you for that. You get the weekly webinars and mock check rides like we do here every Monday night. Access to our FAA written test prep bootcamp, which is geared towards just that. Help me pass the written test. You get our MzeroA mentorship through opportunities like this. Chat with us every Monday night. You have the office number. You have our direct email addresses. You get accountability and mentorship through this. You get the crazy pass your check ride or we'll pay for it guarantee. You can see the prices down there. They are monthly prices because the videos are always being updated. Like I said, we just reshot everything to ACS guidelines. Guys, everybody else is still talking PTS. We're the only ones talking ACS, Airman Certification Standards. It's the new standard of how we test. We're already shooting videos because the medical is going away. Did you know and did you see about how now they're going to start April 1st issuing student pilot certificates? And it's going to be up to 3 weeks. You're going to have to wait for that. You learn that stuff when you're a Pilots Inner Circle Gold, Silver, Bronze, or Pilots Inner Circle member. The videos are always up to date for you guys in 4K. And that commercial pilot ground school will be about 50% done by the end of this month, 100% done in February. And when you become a member, gold, silver, or bronze, it's not like you have just instrument. You have access to all of them because there's instrument. You want to be an instrument pilot, but like I said, you can be quizzed on private pilot stuff. So it'd behoove you to go back and watch some private pilot videos too. Maybe you want to do commercial pilot, but it would behoove you to go back and watch some instrument, watch some private pilot videos, and watch all the commercial pilot videos, because they're going to assume and they can retroactively ask you any of those questions. So groundschoolacademy.com to get signed up. Again, #1 rated online ground school, guys. If you love our YouTube videos, if you love my teaching style, you're going to love our online ground school with the in-studio videos, the in-cockpit videos. It is just done by our production team, top-notch production. And of course, again, you have to like my teaching style. If you don't feel my teaching style is right for you, I'm very I talk fast, I talk loud, but I try to break it into plain English for you. I try to always say, you need to know this for the written, you need to know this for your check ride, but most importantly, you need to know this to be a safe, real-world pilot. Of course, you get signed up, you get all those books, and once you are signed up and logged in, go to groundschoolacademy.com to sign up. Once you are signed up and you're logged in, you can download those books tonight. It'll be a zip file. You can unzip it to your computer, print out the PDFs, put the PDFs on your iPad, download the audio books, and they're separate MP3s to your iPhone, your MP3 player, burn them to a CD, whatever you want to do with it. Once you are a member, go to groundschoolacademy.com/books. You have to be logged in, and go to groundschoolacademy.com/books to download that. You can do that tonight once you're signed up. If you're already a member, guys, Merry Christmas. Or Merry Late Christmas, because that is your gift to you guys for just being a member today. So you can check that out. At this time, guys, I am more than happy to take your questions. This is your time. If Matt, Scott, Larry, Ashley weren't able to answer your questions, I'm more than happy to take those. Obviously, any sales questions, ask for Ashley or Matt or Scott or Larry. They'll be happy to take those questions. But I'll try to. They're also taking your flight training questions. I specifically want to take flight training questions. Ashley is the business mogul here. She'll take any web or business related questions. Matt as well can take those questions for you guys. I'm gonna take some flight training questions. I keep in mind I am an old married man, guys. I'm getting old. You know, I almost found a gray hair one day, so I'm getting old. I can't stay up all night. It is quite late over here for me. When you're old, married, and have a baby, you got to go to bed early sometimes. Wife's orders. So I'm going to take a few flight training questions, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Again, there are so many people on this webinar. Please do not be offended if I do not take your question or anything like that. I'd be more than happy to help you out. You can go to MzeroA.com, click the Ask a Question button, and we can help you out in the morning with your question if we're not able to get that. So that is what we are working on. Mo E said, hey, why is flight training so expensive? Well, Mo, it's certainly not cheap, but there's certainly great ways to save some money on it. So Mo, here's my challenge to you. Go to undergroundaviationseminar.com, and I don't know what date I'm doing it. I'd have to look and see. It's on my calendar though, so I'll be there. I'm doing a webinar literally called What Makes Airplanes Fly, and it's time, money, and motivation. And we're going through the time, the money, and the motivation part of flight training. And it's geared towards people like yourself who go, listen, this is my dream, but how do I make it happen? And we're going to talk about scholarships. We're going to talk about budgeting. We're going to talk about all these things that no one else will really tell you. And of course, Mo, if you haven't checked out the Private Pilot Blueprint, it is a free book. Like I opened this webinar saying, we shipped over 5,000 copies last year. Gave them away for free. All you have to simply do is just pay shipping for that. PrivatePilotBlueprint.com to check those out. Let's see here. Let me help out Ashley real quick. I want to make sure she could. Ashley said she's having problems accessing the questions. Hopefully that's working now. All right. Ragni, I hope I'm saying your name right. He said, why would an aircraft with an Aft CG cruise faster? Because it has less tail down force. There is less tail down force. There is less resistance. Do you understand what I'm saying there? With that aft CG, there is less tail down force. And when I say cruise faster, I'm talking 1, 2, 3 knots tops. It's not like we're going from a 172 to 182. It's talking like you're going to go 2 knots faster. It's not worth the stability risk. Forward CG is always the way to go. And this is why sometimes you have to be the bad guy and tell the larger passengers to sit up front with you, even though the skinny little guy in the back says, man, I really wanted to fly. Well, you're going to have to take the skinny little guy in the back on a flight by himself one day if Bubba's going to go flying. And no offense to anybody in this webinar named Bubba. I'm just using it as an example. Okay. So, reading some more of these. Kelly F. On the approach plate, do you have to brief the remarks section? I imagine you're talking about like alternate takeoff and you using this airport as an alternate, using this airport as a takeoff. If you cannot retrieve the proper altimeter setting, do this. No, that's stuff you should have looked at on the ground before. It's certainly something I glance at, Kelly. It's certainly something I know and understand, but I'm in theory, single pilot. They failed my vacuum system. I'm briefing this approach and I'm talking on the radios. Hopefully I briefed that in my head already ahead of time. I'm not going to read that aloud to my examiner. I'll acknowledge it certainly. But that is that. Mike B said, how much coffee do you drink in a day? Mike B, I am not a coffee guy. I'm not a caffeine guy. But you catch me normally this late and I'm like falling asleep by now. So I just got to hit that wall here soon. But it is natural energy and passion for what we get to do every day, my friend. We're very, very blessed. Don't feel like I have a job sometimes, getting to share the good word of aviation with you guys. Rob Y. Hey, Rob says, is ACS out for instrument? The answer is no. I've seen a draft. It is very appealing. We've built the Instrument Pilot Ground School around that draft. So what's happening right now with the ACS, Airman Certification Standards, is the private pilot is being tested, Embry-Riddle Daytona, Embry-Riddle Phoenix, or Prescott, Embry-Riddle, a few satellite Embry-Riddle bases, a few Liberty places are doing it. Most of the big schools are testing it with a few students right now and providing feedback before they roll it out. I've heard as late as December, I've heard as early as April, but it will roll out private pilot first. They'll collect some data. Then they'll test instrument, and then they'll roll it out, and they'll collect some data. And that's just they're going to roll it. So, Rob, if you plan on becoming an instrument pilot in 2016, you won't have to say ACS, I'd imagine. You're safe on that. If I had to say that. Thank you, Jason. This is from Dwayne T. Thank you, Jason, so much. I didn't expect any of that information. Thought the commercial pilot check ride was going to be a walk in the park. And that's why I hate the term, and I don't use the H word much, but that is why I hate the term. It's a glorified private pilot, because it's not. It is a tough check ride. Seriously, hydroplaning and the speed that will be on your check ride. Moment and weight shifts in moment will be on your check ride and on your written test. It is a hard check ride to pass. Not to mention, we didn't even dive into systems. Guys, I had to draw. I did my commercial in a 172 RG. I did my CFI in a Aero. And in both instances, I had to draw the hydraulic system, like the hydraulic lines and where they go and everything else. I had to draw what it looks like inside the propeller hub and then explain it. It was a hard check ride. Just be ready for that. I'm continuing to read some of these. Kristen said, what do you think of scholarships for international students? He's from Romania. Well, thank you for being up so late in Romania. I know it is late there. I see Ashley or somebody chimed in, women in aviation scholarships. You don't have to be a lady to win women in aviation scholarships. Don't let them fool you. Also, Carl Valeri, I gave this guy a shout out on the private pilot webinar. I'm giving him a shout out tonight. I'm going to give him a shout out probably the remainder of these webinars. The dude compiles an amazing aviation scholarship list. Flying Careers, is it, Scott? I know that's his Twitter handle. Scott, would you mind helping out with that one? Carl is his buddy. But if you just Google Carl Valeri, V-A-L-A-R-I-E, Carl's going to be mad because I can't spell his last name, but you Google something like that, followed by aviation scholarships, you will find it, I promise. And maybe, Scott, if you want to text me his direct URL, and I'll shout that out again real quick. Greg E. Beautiful question. Greg E. Do you have pen and paper in your hand? You ready for this? He said, what are the main items? I'm writing it up myself so I don't forget myself. What are the main items to brief on the approach? This is world famous Uncle Larry, who is not really my uncle, but he kind of becomes everybody's uncle. He already beat me to it. The acronym is R Martha. Martha, like the lady, letter R before it. R Martha. You ready for this? The R is for right approach. Do I have the right approach? The MA in Martha is for missed approach. Did they assign me a missed approach? If not, what is the published missed approach? R, the next R in Martha is for radios. Who am I talking to now? Who am I talking to next? What radio should I have for my localizer, for my VOR? Is it confirmed, verified, and working? Have I listened to that Morse code? The T in R Martha is for time. Is there time on this approach? The H is for heading. What heading am I on? What heading am I going to next? What heading, what am I shooting for on my localizer? And the A is for altitude. What is my MDA, or my decision altitude? That is what I'm looking for. R Martha. Beautiful acronym. World famous Uncle Larry gave that to me. And it is awesome. Mike, hey, Mike B. Mike B, I saw your, I think you sent me an email too. I need to look at that. Currently working on CFI. He said, should I be learning ACS right now? Mike B, you should certainly, I don't know if you should be learning it per se, Mike B, but you should certainly become familiar with it. Google FAA ACS draft, and you can get access to the private pilot draft that way. Just read through it and say, oh, okay, it says this on the PTS, it says this on the ACS. What they've really done, if I had to break it into plain English for you, is they took the special emphasis areas found in the PTS and they put them into context, and they put them into scenarios of the ACS. That's kind of essentially that. I'm reading some of these here, and again, guys, I cannot take everybody's question. I'm going to do my best to get a good bit of them here. Robert M. I'll tell you yes. I can't announce that totally publicly, yes. But Robert M., you know who you are. The answer is yes to that. This is from Jacob F. How in depth does the DPE go into weather charts, prog charts, etc.? Gosh, weather is huge. I saw someone typed in there, I don't know if it was Matt, Scott, or Larry, maybe 25% of their oral exam. Absolutely. A quarter of it. You're going to talk about weather. You're going to be asked to explain these charts. It is a huge part of that Checkride, no doubt. It is big. So you need to get good. Don't shy away from prog charts. I know radar summary charts are dated. I know weather depiction charts are just, they don't use them. The FAA is getting rid of a lot of stuff, which is great. They got rid of area forecasts. and a lot of this big picture stuff. Weather depiction charts, radar summary charts are on the chopping block relatively soon as well. So there's a lot of changes happening, but prog charts, I'd argue, are not going anytime soon. So let's continue, guys. I am going to take. It's getting a little bit late. I'm going to take 3 more questions, and then I'm going to wrap this thing up here. I'm going to take 3 more questions, then I'm going to wrap this up here. So listen, if you have a question, if I didn't answer it and you want an answer, copy and paste it. Maybe I'll see it again and I can take it. If not, type your question now. I'm taking 3 more questions, so we're going to call it a night. Of course, again, with our online ground school members, guys, I sit there and I take everybody's questions. So one of the benefits of being an online ground school member with that. So let me read through some of these here. Let's see. Matt, I'm testing something out here really quick, by the way, and let me know how this works. I'm reading these. Nick S., good question. This is the first one I'll take. Will I run into any surprises if I'm tested on ACS standards while I'm trained on the PTS student pilot with 30 hours? Nick S., no. Because you've started under the PTS, you will finish under the PTS. So nice, easy to know. You start on the PTS, you'll finish on PTS. They won't just magically go, okay, it's ACS today. Good question with that. Ashley, I'm testing something out. I want to see how that works. You'll know what I'm talking about when you get it. Larry, if you're still on the webinar, I'm going to assign this to you. Let me know how that looks too, by the way. Kristen D., I'll take your question. Second question, do you think a degree is going to make a huge difference in an airline interview? Absolutely. Kristen D., it is very difficult to get hired right now without a degree. And I know they say pilot shortage and you hear all this sort of stuff, and they're right. There's just as much of a pay shortage as there is a pilot shortage, but don't think they're so desperate that they're lowering the requirements and not taking a degree. For most regional airlines, you can get away with not having a degree, but they're going to want to see a degree, and not just any degree. They're going to want to see a degree in some sort of sciences or something along those lines, aviation management, something that you can relate to aviation or engineering or science in some sort of way. So Christian D., for the regionals, you'll be all right without a degree. But my friend, if you plan on stepping up to the majors, by majors, I'm talking Virgin, Southwest, JetBlue, Delta, American, you're gonna need a degree if you want to stand out in those hiring pools. It's really it's that. So let me see. I'm going to Nick K., I'm going to take your question, and then I am wrapping this thing up. He says, explain what it means when they say fly at 65% power, which is X amount of RPMs or whatever. Why can't I just fly at full throttle all the way? Well, obviously, Nick, we've got a red line on our aircraft. We don't want to overstress our aircraft. We certainly don't want to make our engine or cause our engine to work any harder than it has to. It is all about efficiency with flying. So, Nick, could you fly full throttle your entire cross country? Absolutely you could. As long as you don't redline it, you're going to burn a ton of gas. You're going to kill that. That engine's going to make it to maybe 1,000 hours when they normally make it to. Geez, I had 512 Romeo make it to 3,000 hours before it needed an overhaul. It's all about babying that airplane, taking care of that airplane, and using it in the best possible case. Now, there's also cases where density, altitude, and different factors contribute to that. But Nick, that certainly applies into it there. So hopefully that helps with that. So listen, guys, again, if you have a question that I wasn't able to answer, and I apologize, there's a ton of people on this webinar, I'm not able to take every single question. So listen, go to MzeroA.com, click the Ask a Question. Someone from the team or myself will help you out with that question. We'd love to chat with you. If you're not an online ground school member, And if you want to be, groundschoolacademy.com. If you want to continue getting great webinars like this, groundschoolacademy.com. I am doing 2 more free webinars the rest of this month. Larry's doing one a week from today, I believe, on aviation medical stuff. If you have aviation medical issues, you want to learn more about third-class medical reform and get the latest updates, Larry is going to chat about that. Undergroundaviationseminar.com to get signed up. Also, if you're an aspiring student pilot, I'm doing one later in the month as well for you to check out on what makes airplanes fly, time, money, motivation for sure. We'll talk about that, some scholarships and everything else. groundschoolacademy.com to get signed up to get that bonus, guys. And listen, thanks so much for all that you guys do. Thanks so much for being such a blessing to myself, my beautiful wife, Ashley, our gorgeous daughter, Ella, this great team here at MzeroA.com. If there's anything at all we can do this week to help make you a safer, smarter pilot, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out. Guys, enjoy the rest of your night. And most importantly, remember that a good pilot is always learning. Have a great night, guys. See ya.